very strong seductive language. It makes people's lives better, and I see it every day in my work experience here. Music is kind of an antidote to expression where people don't have a chance to express themselves. They can through music, and it's wonderful to see. It makes people's lives better just by associating themselves with the music they love or the musicians they loved in the past growing up. So it's a tool for expression. We all need it. I think being inspired is the thing that gets me out of bed every morning. It's like seeking for something that you're around, you're dancing around it, but you're not quite there. And of recent times, my work has come to a point where what I'm doing is making instruments sound good for people. Now, it's a very subjective area, but it all involves around touch, the touch of a player, and how that instrument, that string, will respond to that player's touch and what they expect the string to do to the voice of the guitar after they touch that string. I grew up in Richmond, and I'm Australian, but my parents are migrants, and I was surrounded by this desire to learn. I was very fascinated by technical things, and at the age of 10, my cousins started playing the guitar. The first thing they bought was a lot of Australian rock albums, and they bought a guitar and a bass and an amplifier. On school holidays, I'd visit them and stay with them, and they'd play records for me, and I'd say, have a listen to this. This is what my teacher's teaching me at the moment. Have a listen to Jimi Hendrix or Robin Trower. And they really got me excited about learning the guitar. Jochen Sherbert was one of the two classical guitar teachers at the Victorian College of the Arts, and I took lessons from him, and it was fantastic. I mean, every lesson was a different aspect of tone production. You know, it'd be about, one week would be about rest stroke, and the next week would be about free stroke, and about how to obtain sound at different parts of the string. Left hand and right hand coordination, Villa-Lobos studies, Giuliani studies, and that year was quite monumental. We worked hard to try to get into the Victorian College of the Arts, and I was in the Melbourne Guitar Ensemble, and I met so many wonderful people in that group. Jochen trained me to be proficient at music, performance, and understanding the repertoire. The classical guitar language itself, the music of the classical repertoire, is culturally kind of different to mainstream. So how one learns this takes time. It is a cultural thing that you're brought up with as well. So for me, it was quite different, but it allowed me to view the world in a different way. I went to school with some very clever, very proficient musicians, which really opened a way of understanding how people perform and interpret the classical works. So that was a great experience. In year 10, we make a decision on a work experience placement. And I did a placement at a shop called Musical Repair and Trading in Sandringham. And it was an incredible place. It had lots of very good musical instruments and from around the world. And they had a guitar repair team, external and internal. And it was just the first time I just saw people working on instruments and spoke shaving belly cuts on Stratocasters and shaping necks and refretting guitars and putting inlays in. And I was proficient enough to do things like restringing, adjusting the guitars, and doing electronics. And yeah, that's where my life changed. There's a clicking point after the VCA audition I did in 1988. I got the placement for being a a classical guitar student for 89, and I just decided my path is more technical, hands-on, the activities that will make instruments sound, or discovering what sound is through wood, wire, electronics. I suspect my job is to decipher how one personality, the personality of a musician or guitarist, how they're trying to express something and what's impeding them from doing that. We can talk about relationship between a vibrating sound box or a vibrating piece of wood being excited by a string that's being touched. And the way a string is actually plucked or excited, which would be pick, fingers, nails, it's going to excite certain types of harmonics. It's going to set a pattern that the string will ring at and what amplitude it rings at and how long it rings for. And so the most sensitive musicians are actually striving to be able to express what's called some sort of speaking voice, some sort of voice that actually allows them to express what a singer would with their vocal cords and their cavity. So musicians, I suppose, if they come to me, they're really looking to rectify an area that's actually kind of impeding that voice. I mean, the common issue is when a guitar player brings a guitar to me, it's in essence, they're bringing it to me because it's not functioning the way they're used to it being, because they're playing it for a long period of time. And it's been somewhere, the voice of it has stopped being able to express the way. So for example, the sustain will be shortened, or it'll be dampened, or it'll be buzzing, uneven in sound, it plays out of tune, or the intonation's not accurate over the fingerboard. So my job is to decipher what the instrument is actually, if it's not functioning properly, and also how the player is actually relating to how the instrument feels. It is quite possible that sensitive artists, they might not feel connected to the instrument if they're changing different instruments at the time, or if even just going through a creative process, they're not connecting with the instrument as well. So they might be, for example, playing harder or playing too soft, or generally harder to express something, and there's something that I need to resolve so that this string can speak without being impeded. At the moment, Daniel Nistico and I are working together, and in essence, what we're trying to do is refine the sound of a guitar, which is a traditional Spanish style guitar. And I'm really influenced by what the Australian makers, the Australian School of Guitar Making is doing, making very efficient, very responsive and sensitive guitars. And with Daniel, we're working on just making the traditional guitar more sensitive, but not at the expense of any other speaking voice. So the envelope of the note still can have a blooming quality, have a longer duration of time, so he can actually execute passages that sound very melodic and musical, and not having to force to control or sustain the note, but allowing him to actually voice that melody for a longer period of time.
This whole process with Jim Matheas has been amazing. Like I've had to think about things and try to put things into words that I would not normally do. And in the process, I think I've learned a lot from that, and seeing how Jim has been able to bring out those qualities in a guitar is really special, and a very rare opportunity. I don't think you get to work with a maker for so long. You know, often you get, as a player, you often get makers approaching you and saying, you know, here's a guitar and what do you think? But you don't get this sort of long-term collaboration. So that's a very different thing, and that's definitely sort of made me realize, like when you ask the question, what qualities, you know, do you like in a guitar or something like that, I wouldn't have probably had a clear answer to that before I met Jim. I probably would have just said loud and clear, and I don't know, like I don't know if I wouldn't have had this sort of specific quality in mind, and I think that's also impacted my playing too. I strive to bring that out of a guitar. If one is in my hands, that's sort of like my tick of approval. Probably one of my favorite qualities in a guitar, and it's totally subjective. So one of my favorite qualities is in the treble strings. So these 3 strings here is when they have this kind of blooming quality. So like you pluck the note, and after you've plucked the note, there's something that happens. Like the instrument kind of does something of its own. So like if you can hear, if I just play one note, there's this after, this blooming quality after the note's been plucked. So it's really interesting because it's like there's this something that you don't control that's happening whilst you're sort of in control of it, but you're sort of not in control of it. And it's a really beautiful, to me, it's one of the most magical things about a guitar is when you hear that quality, and then when that all combines with all the different notes and you hear that sort of thing, when they all blend together, and then you've got this bass note that sort of hangs underneath, and it's like this kind of wash of sounds. You just get it's kind of washed in different sounds, and I think that's what also first attracted me to the guitar.
I believe it's always possible to make a guitar sound better than what they are. And part of that is allowing the string to have its own voice without being impeded. And the other part is actually sort of connecting it to the player's touch. So there's 2 elements of relationship to get the expression right. That's why different instruments will allow different players to still play and almost sound like they've got the same voice, but expressed a little bit differently. And it might require a harder technique on the right hand to be able to bring the sound out. Some instruments make you feel like playing very fast and very linear, very quick sounding and very explosive. And other instruments can inspire you to make it sound more lyrical and more melodic. And I suppose that's the area I'm working on, because that's the most beautiful and the most subtle, and I think that's the area that touches the soul more. Richard Tedesco plays pure flamenco music. He plays flamenco music for dancers to dance to. So for his live sound, he's looking for a sound that's actually very precise, very snappy, very defined, and with not a lot of richness afterwards. So what happens very quick, in a percussive way, almost like a snare drum. So when he's playing very rapid risquedo, that needs to happen very precisely without colourful things happening afterwards. As a solo player, Richard will look for a sound that has a richness that allows him to express almost like that southern Spanish sound, like a lute in a cave. So it's kind of a natural reverberant type of sound. And that allows him to express things in a solo setting. That means that his drone strings are ringing, harmonics, the richness of the strings are long and crisp and clear, and not necessarily cutting and precise, but just long and rich.
I think it's really important, the relationship a guitarist has with a guitar maker. I mean, there's something there that has to happen. Nowadays, we just go to the shop and buy a guitar and that's it. Where my guitar over there is I've got a relationship with a guitar maker in Spain, Jesus de Jimenez in Gilena, and it's go to his house, play guitars, have a few beers, talk about this. I like this, I don't like this. This is nice. You're crazy. The conversations are real. They're deep. And with Jim, it's the same thing. You know, I come over here and I play some of his guitars, and I'm not going to play anything that I haven't prepared anything to play. I want to come here and I want to see what the guitar's got to say, you know, or what it lets me say. Much more, and this particular guitar, Jim's guitar, I love that sound that it's got. It's beautiful. I would only play this type of stuff with it. I wouldn't really go into like that type of flamenco with it, because this is just beautiful for me. It's got that note. Really sings beautifully. Let you go. Beautiful. Last week, my phone fell off a table, bounced, and it brought like a weird bounce, and went straight into my guitar. So I've got a nice little crack there that Jim's going to have a look at and see what we can do with that, you know.
Like everything comes back to sound. So the way something sounds, you know, it just hits you, or it doesn't, and so there's always that kind of hunger to, you know, recreate this sound that you love, and you know, some instrument you can get that from some instruments, and you can't from others, and some people, you know, like Ry Cooder, I think plays a few pretty cheap, nasty guitars, but gets this incredible sound, and so a lot of it, I guess everything has to do with the person playing it and their particular you know, relationship with the instrument. Personally, I really like sustain a lot. So that's, you know, that's one of the first qualities about Jim's guitars that really stand out for me. lot of sustain. There's just every note is so clear, so you can it sort of doesn't matter what. You can play any kind of dissonant thing, and it still sounds great. And I guess it's different for everyone, isn't it? Like everyone's looking for different things.
Robbie Melville comes from the jazz school, so meaning that he learned to improvise and was influenced, or his performances are based on improvising in jazz musicians. Robbie brought me a nylon string guitar he had, and I did some work on that to allow it to speak more to his liking. Like everyone's touch is so individual, and what they expect from an instrument, the subtleties, it really frees them to express. So in the case, he brought me his nylon string guitar, and I reset the neck angle to really allow the amplitude of the string to have a bit more dynamic range. Okay, so that's where our relationship from the nylon string guitar started. During that time, I had been making a few nylon string guitars, and he sort of fell in love with the sound of my guitars. I think he really liked the sustain of them. And again, as an articulate player, he found another aspect, another musical characteristic that allowed him to express a different aspect of his playing. So as a jazz player is used to articulation, quickness, and sometimes jazz players will use reverb, time delay devices to extend the note, but they're usually very articulate players. I studied music at Box Hill TAFE, and it was a great learning experience. Stephen had a huge reputation, and he was only very young. He always had a very good reputation throughout the music school circles that he was the hot guitar player around town. And it was back in 1990. Headless guitars and Steinbergers were quite popular, and Stephen had a Steinberger but wanted a wooden body made that would be nicer sounding than the maple guitar body that he had. So I made him a Paul Reed Smith style body for his Steinberger guitar. Steve's always pushing the boundaries to be a better musician, and he's a hard-working musician, and intensely beautiful would be the way I describe his music, but also as a person. And so I think I really love Steve because he gives 100% of himself. So he's a committed artist, and yeah, that's beautiful.
My relationship with Jim Matheas sort of started when he was at Box Hill TAFE and I was at the VCA. The first guitar we built was, we took a Steinberger guitar, took the neck off it and built a new body and transformed it into this new sort of beast, which was great. Unfortunately, it was stolen. So that was the first experience of building something with Jim. And then you know, around 9 years ago, Jim and I were talking, and I said to him, you know, I just want a nylon string. It's the instrument that still for me is the one that it's the go-to. It's the instrument that I feel the closest to because I started on nylon string. And I was so keen to get it off him that when it came to this rosette, is that what they're called, rosette? Yeah. When it came to, he completed it, and I hadn't even really dried properly, and I wanted it, and I took it off with my finger. I was like, oh, sorry, Jim, I've wrecked it. And he's like, that's okay. It doesn't, as you can see, it's still there, because I was like, no, it's good, because I'm going to take it off again. And this is a guitar that I play almost every single day for 9 years, going on 10 years. I can't imagine not playing this guitar. It's sort of like it's my go-to. I get up in the morning, I play it, because I have little rituals that I, read music in the mornings, and I love playing classical guitar. I'm not a classical guitarist, but I love doing it. And this is sort of, I can't imagine not playing this guitar. It's sort of, I'll play it until I destroy it, basically, because that's what you do, It got so much better playing it for 10 years too. Like, and now and Jim's done a bit of tweaking, and it's amazing.
There are times where Steve's instruments are just holding on, and he has to tour, and I'll be the person that has to rectify something before he leaves. Steve's got a relationship with the guitar. He just trusts it because he's had it for such a long time. And when someone becomes acquainted with the way an instrument responds, someone like Steven doesn't want to change it. He's just comfortable with having it from day to day, knowing how it is. And what happens is they actually wear and wear and wear. They actually become used to the wear and wear and wear. But often I've seen him 3 times in the last few weeks. It's quite uncommon, and it's usually because things are really falling apart. So intonation's really inaccurate, parts are falling off. They get used a lot. These guitars, these 3 or 4 guitars that he uses, they get used a lot. Matt Walker is another beautiful musician, and a person that can really express himself not only with the guitar but with his voice. His voice is absolutely beautiful. Matt was introduced to me by a colleague of mine and mentor, Phil Crickmore, the guitar maker. Phil was making guitars at the time and couldn't repair Matt's guitar, so he recommended me to do the work. And I've known Matt for all that time. It's been over 20 years now. It's been a long time. And Matt has a similar relationship to his guitars that Steve does. The guitars, for example, aren't what we call the highest quality production or handmade instruments, but they have a voice, a speaking voice that's actually quite quirky, quite uneven, but they speak in a way that's actually kind of different. It's not precise. It has a sort of a bark to it and an unevenness to it. And what Matt does is he utilizes that to express his voice. I believe it's important to listen to the musicians need to express and what that means for them. They have a relationship with the guitar, and there's an expectation for it to be a certain way. I carefully evaluate that and try to bring to the table some sort of resolution so that they can actually achieve that speaking voice. And in most cases, try to go beyond that. Try to go beyond that by actually allowing that instrument to have a better dynamic range than what was intended, have more accurate intonation than what was possible. And by measuring, understanding, and seeing how people articulate by playing, I think by just spending the time understanding and developing trusting dialogue, I think I'm really committed to doing something that's actually good for the musician. And it's very personal. It's very subtle. It's very personal, but I have to listen in order to achieve that, and I'm happy to do that. When I was working at a guitar shop on Chapel Street, Gallant's Guitars, in 1991, it was the start of making guitars, and I was just fascinated by craftsmanship. And 3 doors up was McPhee's Furniture, antique furniture outlet, and in that outlet was a craftsman from Venice by the name of Ottavio Randi, and I got to meet him every lunchtime. I'd walk in and he'd show me many different things about wood, and he was one of the people that introduced me in the material making guitars. He introduced me a relationship on how to treat wood and how to cut wood and how to prepare wood and how to machine wood. And he was one of the people that sort of taught me, and just sort of, it was just an easy thing with Ottavio. You'd walk in, and he's taught many people furniture making, but he's basically taught me how to sort of approach wood from a craftsman's point of view, from a Venetian Italian craftsman's point of view, which is basically how to handle it, how to treat it, how to cut it, how to dry it, how to glue it. There is a way of working with the material in a sort of similar way to how chefs are. So they use the material in that context. It's not the same as musical instrument making and how wood's treated that way, but there is a confidence that taught me by working and cutting down timber and chasing the grain and looking for a run out and making sure how to cut quarter. When I first made my electric guitar in Box Hill TAFE, Neil Kennedy, the guitar model I chose and the class made Warwick basses and Paul Reed Smith type guitars. And I actually think I'm obsessive. So, I mean, I really look into detail. So what I did was I researched the type of materials that were used, why they used them, and what the differences were. And around the corner from Box Hill TAFE was a violin maker called Roger Buckmaster. And Roger Buckmaster, I called him up and said, excuse me, Mr. Buckmaster, have you got any Brazilian rosewood? He goes, wait a moment. He went through, I could hear him rustling in the back there. Yeah, come on down. How much do you want for a fingerboard? Oh, I don't know, maybe $20. Come on down, we'll talk about it. And that started me on a quest to understand, to make music or musical instruments. The wood and the strings are the two most important components of making it, and the glue. And really putting those together and finding what's called a synthesis and a balance. Not all wood allows musical sound to come out at its best. It's a characteristic of too heavy or too damped, and it doesn't allow the string to actually do what it needs to do to express that musical sound. So I went on this quest to find materials that would allow that, and it wasn't exactly like that at the time. I was young, so I was just really looking for materials to make really nice instruments, and it led me to go to Adelaide to meet Gunnar Jacobsen, who brought in Brazilian rosewood in 1962, and to find some mahogany and Otto's timber back at that time. And it was a journey. I did 1 year at Gallant's Guitars, and then at the end of the year, I saved up my bickies and went to Adelaide to buy some timber. when you're starting out, you sort of go down these paths of just trying to find what's right, really. That's what it's about. And meeting all these wonderful people that have the same passion. So it's kind of like they've traveled there before and I'm there with them, 40 years later, And I was like, yeah, okay, come in, my friend, come in, don't worry,